What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. I am Pashian with my co-host Dave Martinson. Dave, how about them Grammys, dog?
Ha ha ha. I care almost as much as Drake and Frank Ocean, dog.
Did you watch?
No, hell no.
No.
Come on, man.
I put myself through it. I was so hopeful. We're gonna get into the Grammys briefly. We're gonna be talking Sundance, and we're also gonna be talking Phantom Thread and Culture 2. Culture 2. Ice, ice. That's like my worst Migos impression ever. But before we get going too far, if you're new to the show, thank you for joining us. Please share with friends, subscribe down below, and give us a rating and review on iTunes. We appreciate all the feedback and all the support. Help us grow as a podcast. So jumping back into the Grammy talk real quick. Man, fuck the Grammys. That's literally the first note I have written down for this, because they just never get it right.
Yeah.
And the night kind of kicked off on a bad note when hours before it came out that Lorde was the only album of the year artist to not be offered their own spot to sing. So
solo spot.
A solo spot, right? She was asked to do a Tom Petty tribute collaboration, but Donald Glover, Jay-Z, Kendrick, and Bruno Mars all were offered solo performance options. And Lorde just said, "Fuck you, I'm not going to perform," which good for her. But with the current climate in Hollywood, how, on a scale of 1 to tone deaf, how tone deaf is this?
Yeah, I mean, it's another sign of the fact that the Grammys have the oldest voting body of all the award shows that people pay attention to. It's funny, Lorde's mom tweeted I think it was a New York Times clip, and it said of the last 6 Grammys, of the 899 nominees, 9% were women.
9%.
Which then, leads to that comment, the head of the Recording Academy, whoever that dude was, who said that, women need to step up to win more awards. And I was like, dog, I mean, you can listen to our breakout about the problem with music festivals at SoundCloud.com/nostalgiapod, breakout on YouTube, where, female acts are not getting booked at festivals, and they're also not getting really recognized at the award shows. It's, part of the same problem. And then when the only award given out on the telecast, obviously most of the awards are not given out on TV. The only award given out on screen is to Alessia Cara for Best New Artist. I feel bad that everyone's jumping down her throat for winning, because first of all, everyone is right. I mean, Alessia Cara's debut album, only album, came out in the fall of 2015. She had multi-platinum singles off that, but she's not a Best New Artist anymore. The Grammy definition is you're a Best New Artist if you've never been nominated for a Grammy before. That's fucking stupid. There comes it's like the double XL freshman list kind of has this issue sometimes where you can't have released a commercial studio album. So Ab-Soul and Schoolboy Q got on the list when they were both almost 30 years old, because they weren't signed. TDE wasn't part of Interscope when they released their first albums, right? Similar thing. But for the Grammys to pull this off, when they recognize a lot of people that are much newer on the scene, like Khalid and Uzi and Julia Michaels and SZA, of course, who also really isn't that new. I feel bad for Alessia Cara, because she shouldn't have to defend herself for winning the award. I think she is a good artist, but I mean, it's just a lot of negativity coming off the show. And then Despacito for Song of the Year. I mean, I'm not the biggest Despacito fan, but that is the biggest song in the history of the world right now. It'll be one of the biggest songs ever. What does that say about Spanish music if the song is big and as relevant as Despacito loses it? That's what I like. What does that really say to Spanish musicians? And then Damn, the most radio friendly, radio dominant record that Kendrick ever put out, still doesn't win Album of the Year. And what does that say about rappers? There's only been 2 rap albums to win Album of the Year, Lauryn Hill and Outkast. I mean, it's fucking stupid, really ridiculous. And that's nothing against Bruno. We like the 24 Karat Magic a lot, but the fact remains that of all the Album of the Year nominees, 24 Karat Magic did have the lowest Metascore on Metacritic. And, if we probably should have had Control from SZA in there over Gambino, case still stands. So it's just a lot of, misses on the Grammys part. And it's just frustrating because, I mean, you have Jay-Z up there nominated, 8 times, gets no wins. I mean, you can kiss that. He's never coming back. The only reason he came back this time is because you've been kind of treating Beyonce right, even though you never give her album of the year either because you love Adele. So you can kiss those two goodbye from ever coming back. It's really bad. I mean, the Oscars, we talked, was it last week, about how much we were impressed and happy with the Oscar nominations and on point they were. The Grammys are nowhere close, and then the voting body, which is still old and traditional, they want to gatekeep, but they just don't know how to do it.
And I think when the Grammy nominations came out, we were pleasantly surprised with the nominations, saying like they got it mostly right, especially actually giving Bruno so much love. But there's a difference between giving someone a nod saying that your album deserves to be in the discussion and saying it actually should win. That it's so far apart from where it should be. And to swing back to what, the women have to step their game up quote, out of the albums dropped last year, and when we did our review, I think out of our top 10, we each had women and 2 female pop stars or female artists in the top 5 of ours, with Control and Melodrama. Yep. You have 2 women, different races, different styles of music that are there that you can promote and basically just say like, here is the next generation. Here's who we're getting behind to like push this movement forward and to promote more equality in music. And you put fucking Sting and Bono on stage like 2 times each. I mean, sure, Bono and Edge coming out to back Kendrick, whatever. I get it. Like,
that's fine.
I'm happy for them to play that role. Giving them their own song, like in front of Ellis Island, like just fucking stupid. And I don't want to hear that goddamn Shaggy and Sting song on stage at a music award ceremony ever again. It's so disheartening. And you want to reward people who do good stuff. Bruno Mars does good stuff. He plays the game. Like he did the Super Bowl twice. He's just he's known for being this.
He's happily a part of the industry.
Exactly. And if that's how you're going to reward it, then there's really no point in even ever paying attention to the Grammys. And they've kind of made that clear that if you really care about what the Grammys think, you're just not really a music fan at this point. We could probably keep bashing them all day, but were there any moments from the Grammys you took away that you were like, those weren't so bad?
I mean, Kendrick won all the other rap awards. I mean, that's fine, but I mean, I thought I didn't watch it live, so I didn't really catch most of the performances. The Kendrick performance obviously really good. He stepped up big. Is this the last time he shows up for a long time? It might be, because again, he didn't really. Damn isn't his best record, but it's his most radio friendly, his most mainstream, his most listenable. He played his version of the game. Yep. And they said, now we'll take the homage record from Bruno because, that's 30 minutes long and it's really listenable, which again, that's okay. But I mean, I think you lost Kendrick. So no, I don't really have anything positive to say.
The only moments I thought were great, Donald Glover and Kendrick, their performances stood out, both fantastic.
Yep. And they Terrified, that was cool. That was
good. Yeah. Ben Platt, who he was part of honoring I forgot who the 2 famous. It was Andrew Lloyd Webber and someone else I can't remember, but basically sang a rendition of a Broadway song. He's Benji from Pitch Perfect, if you don't know. Right. He plays Dear Evan Hansen on Broadway right now, so he's killing it. That's like the most popular Broadway show out there behind Hamilton. And then Kesha, was a really powerful performance, but with just the way that they responded to everything else having to do with females in the industry, it just felt so contrived.
Right. And also the Kesha moments, like, here it is. There it was.
Exactly.
Clap our hands. We did it. Like,
they literally said Kesha is about to make a Grammy history moment. It's like, if you're pumping it up like that, is it really that great?
And if you really thought that, you could have given her the win for praying.
Yeah, exactly. And Ed Sheeran won for Shape of You for best pop solo performance against Pink, Kelly Clarkson, and Kesha.
Yeah.
So it's like you really just don't give a fuck about women.
And guess who also didn't care? Ed Sheeran. He also wasn't there.
Yep, didn't even show up.
So bad.
There's a great picture of Kanye eating by himself in a restaurant during the Grammys. Fucking so awesome. All right, why don't we jump to something that people should care about? Sundance. So last year, Sundance was a pretty big indicator of the movies that made an impact. A Ghost Story, which I don't think which we didn't review or neither one of us saw, but that had an early buzz in the year. Call Me by Your Name came out of it, which we did a review on. Check that out, soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod, and on our YouTube page. Big Sick and Mudbound, I believe, all came out.
Correct. Yeah, and Get Out as well.
Right. Oh, how could I forget that? Yeah. Probably second biggest movie out of all those. So yeah, tell me about Sundance this year. You were following it pretty closely over the weekend. What came out of it?
Yeah, so I mean, Sundance is it's spread out over 2 weeks or so in Park City, so you kind of gotta just let it happen before you can kind of dive into the conclusions, the takeaways. But yeah, so it's interesting because on one hand, on a surface level, I mean, me doing my digging, reading the pieces, reading the early reviews, I mean, there are a lot of movies that look interesting, look good, have good casts, and the reviews are really strong. Then on the other hand, it was a really slow Sundance and a kind of, I guess, weak Sundance because most people, most distributors, most people looking to make acquisitions sat it out. Last year Netflix paid $12.5 million for Mudbound. Amazon paid $12 million for The Big Sick. Netflix and Amazon, total. Netflix had 10 acquisitions at a Sundance last year. Amazon had 5. Both of them have 0 acquisitions this year, which is interesting because, I mean, some of the movies, Wildlife, directed it by Paul Dano with Carey Mulligan. Damsel with Robert Pattinson and Mia Wasikowska, the girl from Alice in Wonderland. Sorry to Bother You with Lakeith Stanfield, Tessa Thompson, and Armie Hammer.
Yeah.
Burden with Garrett Hedlund, which is a Ku Klux Klan redemption story. Forrest Whitaker's in there as well. The Tale with Laura Dern, which is about very resonant in terms of Me Too. And then let's see, 2 more. Beirut with John Hamm, written by Tony Gilroy. Really good, really talented group there. Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot with Jonah Hill and Joaquin Phoenix, directed by Gus Van Sant. And lastly, Assassination Nation. So there is a lot of buzzworthy movies there. And yet, HBO picked up The Tale, and apparently they're going to market it as a TV movie and campaign for Laura Dern for the Emmys, not released in the theater. So that's interesting. I guess it doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Get Laura Dern that Emmy, dog.
Yeah. Sorry to Bother You was picked up by Annapurna. And Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot. Amazon had actually already picked that up pre-Sundance. So, the most expensive movie out of this was Assassination Nation, which was, co-picked up by AGBO, which is a distribution group from the Russo brothers, the guys who direct Civil War and Infinity War for Marvel, as well as Neon, which is kind of a newer player, but they actually are behind I, Tonya this year. So I want to see most of these movies based off the buzz, but it's interesting that Netflix and Amazon, as well as A24, Fox Searchlight, and Focus Features, none of them have bought anything.
What do you make of the slow market this year for the Sundance movies?
Yes. So I don't really have an answer for A24, Fox Searchlight, and Focus Features because they're more traditional distributors. They're just, obviously we talk about A24 a lot. They're just, they're smaller, of course, but Amazon, Netflix, it just seems that, and we talk about how they're in the business of original content, and Netflix in particular likes to own their own content, produce it start to finish. That way they control every aspect of it and thus control every aspect of profiting from it, right? So that's actually kind of extending to movies. Rather than go to Sundance and go buy movies that were already done, they're getting movies started from the start, So everything's just going in-house, right. And they're just becoming more self-sufficient, more independent, if you will. And, there are a few movies like Life Itself from Dan Fogelman. Amazon pre-bought that, and then that movie didn't even go to Sundance. So it looks like that's going to happen for the big two streamers, or they're just going to get in from the start. But yeah, it's interesting because you would have thought that Amazon, despite we talked about last week about them cutting back on indies, they still said they want to be a part of indies. So you thought they could have maybe picked some of these up, for a few $1 million. But it's interesting. But I think ultimately we'll see if it really matters that much, because all these movies will get their fair shake, I'd say.
Yeah, they're going to be smaller releases, but I think all these movies will definitely be seen. Out of the ones that you talked about, which ones are you most excited to see, or you feel like could make the biggest buzz this year?
Yeah, so I think the two biggest ones are The Tale with Laura Dern. That looked, the whole sound of it, the whole premise, that just sounds like it could really take off this year, given the climate we're in. And then Sorry to Bother You is apparently just bonkers. And Keith Stanfield, Tessa Thompson, Armie Hammer, like I said, also has Terry Crews, Stephen Yeun from The Walking Dead, David Cross, and Danny
Shout
Glover.
Out David Cross.
Apparently that movie's bonkers. So, I think that'll do really good. Stanfield and Tessa Thompson, they're both, really taking off the past few years. So, yeah, I would put my money on those two.
Well, and Armie Hammer had like a resurgence last year.
Yeah,
that's a buzzworthy cast right now. There were a couple other ones that just in flipping through notes I saw caught my eye. Here Beats Loud has Nick Offerman and Kiersey Clemons. It's like a father-daughter tale. And Kiersey Clemons, I hear, puts on a performance that could poise her to be the next like breakout female star, which is exciting. Also, Hereditary seems like it could be the Get Out of this year.
Yeah.
Oh, is it A24? Did you mention that one already?
No, but the trailer's already out.
Yeah, I think it dropped last weekend. It has Toni Collette, Gabriel Byrne, and Ann Dowd, who's just off of Leftovers, but also she was on the Handmaid's Tale. And it's a horror movie that seems to draw a lot from the 70s horror movies that were very popular, like The Exorcist, but it has its own tone and feel to it, which has made it very buzzworthy. I'm also really excited to see Burden. It won the Sundance Award. Just like their biggest prize that they give out. And Garrett Hedlund, back in the KKK, man, can't get away from it.
Yeah, he's good at playing a Southern boy. So
apparently,
post Mudbound, keep it going, I guess.
Yeah, and just one more that I thought might be a name to keep an eye on: Reynaldo Marcus. He directed a movie at Sundance called Monsters and Men. It's a fictional retelling of the Eric Gardner murder in 2014.
Oh, wow.
And they tell the story from 3 different perspectives. He made a short film in 2015 that was seen and got him this role as a director. And it seems like he's going to be a director on the rise. So someone to keep an eye on. Any more takeaways from Sundance for you?
No, yeah, like I was saying, I think you just gotta. It seems like it was just kind of a slow year, in terms of things getting picked up, getting bought. Last year seems to have kind of been an outlier with multiple movies being bought for over 12 million. Right. It seems like everything's gonna be mid millions, which obviously is a very healthy, offer for anyone. And coming out of these reports, and Netflix sat out. Apparently, there's talk that they're targeting Inarritu. They want to, get him to make a movie for them, which would be really cool. And then there was also a rumor about a week and a half ago that they were in talks with Paramount, I believe, to pick up Cloverfield 3, which was being called God Particle. That title might be changing, but that would be really interesting because that's a movie that was initially going to come out in February. It's now currently slated for April, but we have seen no pictures, no trailers, no nothing. Very much like Solo. A Star Wars story. So that's something to keep an eye on, because also they just announced that Cloverfield 4 is coming out in the fall and has already done filming. It stars one of the guys from Fences, as well as Kurt Russell's son, who was in the Black Mirror episode Playtest. The guy who, the traveler dude who had the thing happen to him. So yeah, the Cloverfield franchise, which is financed by J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot Company, quietly, sneaking around there. So keep an eye on that.
Cloverfield was a movie I never thought would even get a sequel, and then when it did, I was pumped. I'd never thought it would become a franchise, so that's pretty exciting. Movie Pass made a little bit of buzz this weekend too, right?
Yeah, they picked up American Animals with The Orchard, so they'll be co-distributors for a cool $3 million. So that's Movie Pass's first movie that they'll be financially invested in, and also, of course, could make money from down the line. So that's interesting.
First Movie Pass Ventures acquisition.
Indeed.
So we're going to be probably talking about some of these movies, if not most of them, moving forward. Give us your thoughts on Sundance, anything that we missed. Hit us up on Twitter at NowstalgiaPod, or leave a comment below on YouTube or SoundCloud. Why don't we jump to Culture 2, an album that you said, Dave, you wanted them to take their time with. You wanted them to only release it when it was really ready. What were your thoughts?
So it came out, I think, to the day of the 1-year anniversary of Culture 1. And this album is 11 songs longer than Culture 1 and about 45 minutes longer. It's an hour and 40 minutes, 40 plus minutes, whatever.
105 minutes.
Yeah. And it's really disingenuous to call it an album. It's very much a playlist, like Drake's More Life.
Drake.
Because it was released with 24 tracks to game the charts. Get more, because the way music business works these days is you make money by streaming. And
every 1,500 plays equals one album sale.
Right. And one pretty obvious way to make money streaming is to make more songs to stream. So that's what they did. And the reason I was apprehensive that it was coming so soon is because, I wanted them to take their time. Culture 1 was so fresh and so innovative and, was such a moment that I, slow your roll. It's okay. Let's get another one. But Culture 2 is very much Migos. All three of them really just kind of doing what they're good at, doing more of the same. But when it's going on for this long, the lack of versatility, the underwritten hooks, the bad choruses, it really all just stands out, and it does not justify its very long runtime, obviously, which is disappointing because there are some really good moments on this that I really enjoy. I just wish this thing had 10 less tracks.
Yeah, yeah. It's actually funny because I think the thing that was so, first of all, calling your album Culture is such a ballsy move, and then to deliver tenfold on it is just so amazing. To then follow it up with naming the album Culture 2, and then to basically drop I would consider this a flop for Migos. I mean, there are good songs on here. There's people are going to be buzzing about it for a little bit, but to not live up to Culture 1, I don't know. It's definitely a disappointment. They weren't even inventive, which I think was the thing about their sound that came out on Culture 1 and really grabbed the nation by storm, the music nation by storm, is that they were so refreshing and fun to listen to, and it was different than most other rap groups you had heard at this time. I mean, people definitely had elements of it, but their flow was so infectious that no one has that. For the first 9 tracks, they have the same setup for every song, where it's I believe it's a Quavo hook and then a Quavo verse, and then it drops into someone else. And the only backing you hear for like the first 2 minutes on those songs are just drop-ins. So it's, it really just seemed like they wanted to get this album out. They wanted to have more songs out there. They wanted to be charting, be making money, which I respect. I mean, the game is the game, but for a group like Migos, which has the potential to, I mean, they are one of the premier groups in rap right now, to they could absolutely just taken the reins. I think this, if Ray Shremmerd, Shrem Life 3 comes out and kicks ass, it could put them on the same stratosphere as Migos, where Migos could have vaulted themselves way above anybody else at this point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's also disappointing because Takeoff is actually really good on Culture awesome. 2 a lot. He was obviously the forgotten man on Culture 1. Obviously, do I look like I was left off Bad and Bougie is a meme. he's the only one without his own Wikipedia page still. But Takeoff, I think, really shines. And, you know, as they've kind of left their mixtape days and then they got, you know, obviously really mainstream leading up to Culture with Bad and Bougie. Quavo, I think his lyrics have definitely, you know, come down. He's really just kind of become a hook man.
Yeah.
You know, usually the autotune is good. I don't mind that, of course. And Offset obviously is the one who does all the, you know, the lyrical gymnastics and the, you know, the really good rapping. But Takeoff really came into his own on this, and it's just disappointing because you have to kind of seek out those songs, remember which songs they were, because they're hidden between a lot of the filler, you know. And like, you know, I was foolishly optimistic that I was like, oh well, you know, the Quality Control Volume 1 label mixtape from December, the Migos were on like half of those 30 songs. So like that was their filler. You know, that was their studio leftovers, you know. You know, they saved all the good stuff. And yeah, they saved some good stuff, but they also saved a lot of crap. And it's just disappointing because they, you know, I just thought they didn't need to do this. You know, they just didn't need to do the cash out move.
Well, especially because they've been on everything. Like they've been featured on like a song every single weekend on Spotify. I see them like Quavo on another song or Takeoff.
Exactly. And, you know, and Quavo, he made, I think, like, or co-produced like 10 beats on the album, you know, and there's some good beats there, but, you know, so it's not like they totally sat in their hands, but I just think, you know, in the booth, they just very much just kind of did more of the same. And you know, I was kind of worried when I heard Superstars, which I think is a totally fine Migos song. I do enjoy it, but it's very much Migos by the numbers, you know?
Definitely.
I think if there's good songs to work, you know, look to, songs to take away, to go back to, I think, honestly, I think the lead single Stir Fry is still really great. There's actually a pretty funny Asian inspired music video for it out now. That's, you know, it's a really funky Pharrell beat that evidently Pharrell's been sitting on for 10 years.
Crazy.
And he finally gave it to Migos, but I think they deliver on that. I think Superstars is okay. I think Work Hard is probably my favorite song on the album. I think the hook is one of Quavo's best hooks in a very long time. Autopilot, I really like. That's a Quavo beat. That's good. Narcos, I really like as well.
It's one of the ones I had down.
Yeah, then
Gang Gang.
Gang Gang's so pretty good. Too Much Jewelry, I like. Like there's some moments like Too Much Jewelry. Like, that's an awesome Quavo hook. It really works, you know.
What about Walk It Like It? Okay.
Yeah, so see, Walk It Like I Talk It, BBO with 21 and Drake respectively. Like those songs, I think like they're good, but I just think the hooks were a little underwritten, so they're kind of annoying. I think the 21 verses is pretty good.
Yeah, definitely, he stood out.
Notice Me is probably one of Takeoff's shining, you know, songs. I believe that has a Post Malone hook, but it works pretty well. The 2 Chainz song, 2 Chainz really stands out over everyone else. And, you know, I think that it's interesting too about this album lasting so long is that a lot of these songs, it's all 3 of them contributing a verse. And then if that song happens to have a underwritten hook, you've heard that underwritten hook a few times because you keep going into these fucking hot 16s or really long verses. So, you know, it kind of runs itself out of town by the time the song ends. But yeah, it's so definitely a disappointment. You know, it's interesting because Strem Life 3, as we've, you know, talked about it being close, not only has Ray Sherman had more time to record, but apparently they've also been recording because Mike Will was saying to Pitchfork that it's going to be a triple album. But rather than just be total bulk like Culture 2, at least they're differentiating it. It's going to be 1 disc is a Sway solo, 1 disc Swaycation, 1 disc is a solo from Slim Jimmy, Jim Traduction. And then the 3rd disc was, you know, Strem Life 3, the 2 of them together. So at least that
Outkast would do.
Right. So at least that's like unique enough that you can kind of treat it and view it as 3 separate projects in a sense. They're just putting it together because it's too obvious for the money, you know? But yeah, Culture 2 itself, I kind of wish it just wasn't called Culture 2. You know, what this could have just been a mixtape that you charged for, call it something else. But yeah, disappointment.
Something that wasn't disappointing. Phantom Thread. Man, so it finally in wide release as of January 25th, I believe.
Took forever.
Which I forgot that it finally got to wide release that weekend because it had just been coming out so slowly. I was like, oh, it has already been out by now. So I showed up to the theater, and it was actually pretty packed. Like, I couldn't believe how many people were there. And I was like, "Why? This movie's been out for a month now. Why are people just getting to it?" Makes a lot of sense with the slow release. So this is Paul Thomas Anderson's first movie since 2014's Inherent Vice. Paul Thomas Anderson, widely regarded as probably top 3 filmmaker right now.
Yeah, I think it's like him and Christopher Nolan in terms of guys that are pretty well tenured, been in the game a while. They're probably a step above Wes Anderson, but Wes Anderson's about the same age as them. They're all around like 50, late 40s, whatever. But yeah, I mean, what was it like? What was your theater experience like for a packed theater? Because this is a very unique movie. It's unlike anything I saw throughout 2017, no doubt.
It was funny because obviously I've listened to some podcasts that, like the Bill Simmons podcast had an interview with Paul Thomas Anderson, and they talked about how the movie is funnier than a lot of people realize. Yeah. So I went in and I was ready for that. So I felt like I was laughing a lot at first when people weren't okay with that, or weren't ready for that. So I felt like almost in a way I was like leading them to be like, oh, I guess I can like laugh at this or giggle at this part, which was nice.
Yeah. You just don't know what you're watching at the start if you have no idea really going in. You know, the trailers don't tell you much. No, so, I mean, I felt that way as well. I was like, I didn't know what to think of it for the beginning.
Yeah. But overall, I mean, it was interesting to watch with a group because movies like this, I feel like I usually see with only a couple of people in the theater. So this was strange. You know, it's hard to pick where to start with this. This is supposedly Daniel Day-Lewis's last performance. He's been nominated for Best Actor. What did you take away from his performance in this movie?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a great note to go out on if it was in fact the last note. Yeah, it's a really good performance. It's not as in your face physical like Lincoln, and it's not as dramatic and emotional as say Daniel Plainview and There Will Be Blood. It's a much more measured dialogue-y role. Obviously, he's hilariously named Reynolds Woodcock, which is probably the sign you should know that this movie is going to be low-key hilarious.
Yep.
But yeah, it's I mean, some of like the one-liners, just the way he delivers those lines. I mean, he's such a obviously he's it's been talked to death for good reason. He's such a stud.
Yeah. More than anything, like I think it was K. Austin Collins wrote about this for The Ringer, but he talked about like his hands in the movie. I thought his posture really was like so perfect, like the way he would like just sit and like look at things or like stand as he's like thinking about a dress. He does those subtle things that no other actor really does in their performance. Also, the way that he played off of Alma, Vicky Krieps, was their scenes back and forth were so like tension filled, but also like would have the perfect, like when she was like making fun of him, like it just like broke the tension so perfectly, and it really brought it down to like the absurdity of their relationship and the absurdity of the expectations within their relationship. She was a standout for me. She was nominated for Best Actress, I believe.
No, Vicky Krieps was not nominated.
It was Leslie Manville that was nominated, correct? For Best Supporting Actress.
Supporting, yes. Vicky Krieps. The movie doesn't work if she's not as good as she is.
Yeah,
I mean, she's a relative unknown. I believe she's from Luxembourg. So, her performance, because she has to play off Daniel Day-Lewis in effectively every scene, that she's in. And she's such a good foil for him. And then once you realize how the movie's going to end and what's going to happen and the direction her character is going, it's just, I mean, she sells it so well. But I mean, it's so weird because the movie's so unique and some of the stuff in it is just so flat out absurd, but not in like a in your face kind of way, just in kind of like, like once you understand what you're actually watching and what's going on, it's just so surreal. And I think the movie's like so genius for that because the screenplay, which was not nominated for Best Original Screenplay, but the screenplay is so smart and so well written. And of course, DDL just can chew on dialogue in his sleep, and of course he does. But yeah, Vicky Krieps, definitely a breakout. She'll have her pick of roles after this.
Definitely. Yeah, it's so funny to think about certain moments in the movie. Like I particularly go back to kind of like the final dinner scene between Daniel Day-Lewis and Vicky Krieps, and just like how much is said without them actually like saying or even really doing anything. Like the way he like holds the fork towards her, or just like stares at her, and then like breaks into that smile, like of like recognition and of acceptance and happiness of the way that she's decided to handle their relationship is it's I can't remember really seeing a movie about a relationship like this ever.
No.
Especially one that works this well. Um, we should probably touch on Leslie Manville since she is nominated for Best Supporting Actress.
The old so-and-so.
Yeah, Cyril Woodcock, which Cyril, I haven't heard that name since a James Bond movie. What? But yeah, she was great. She plays such a important but also like low key role in the movie. I feel like
reserved.
Yeah, which is important because if her character is any more boisterous like her brother, Reynolds, it would make the movie just a little bit too much, I think. I don't really have too much else to say about her performance. Anything that stood out to you particularly about it?
No, it's just really strong. Again, she really chews on her lines. I'm really happy that we saw it last week. I'm really happy that she was nominated because I think Best Supporting Actress, I mean, it was kind of weak at the bottom. Octavia Spencer, looking at you. So the fact that this is getting recognized is wonderful. Honestly, Vicky Krieps also was, I think, worthy. Would you consider her a Best Actress versus Supporting? I think she's probably a lead actress, right?
Definitely, she's definitely a lead in this movie to me. I don't have the field in front of me. I can't really recall it, but I don't know if there's anybody in particular that I think she should have taken their spot over.
Yeah, I mean, it would have probably been like Meryl Streep. She was like the last pick.
Yeah, I haven't seen the post yet, so I can't really speak to that, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, you're taking McDormand, you're taking Ronan, you're taking Sally Hawkins, and you're taking Margot Robbie. So yeah, it's
definitely
Meryl Streep, who doesn't, honestly, Meryl Streep doesn't need the extra nomination that she's not winning.
No.
So give it to the newcomer, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree, but Meryl Streep is gonna always get the nomination.
Yeah, that's Big Little Lies, Meryl Streep to you.
I know, unbelievable, man. It's the peak of peak TV. It's unbelievable,
indeed.
So it's nominated for 6 Academy Awards. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Original Score, and Best Costume Design. I mean, costume design is kind of hard to say. I don't really know.
Who's it going up against for costume design? Because it's literally a movie that's about making the costumes.
It's an interesting point. Let me pull it up here.
I just, because it's like it's English. It is like a set in the past movie, so you have like the retro vibe to the costumes. I just don't know if they stand out enough to win the award.
It's going against Beauty and the Beast, Darkest Hour, Phantom Thread, The Shape of Water, and Victoria Abdul. Of note, Beauty and the Beast and Darkest Hour, the same person is up for the award, Jacqueline Duran.
Didn't know that. Yeah, that's probably just going to go The Shape of Water.
Probably.
Usually the Best Picture winner or a top Best Picture contender sweeps a lot of down ballot stuff. So yeah, it's probably just going to go Shape of Water, which is also a period movie, similar kind of case. So it's tough to make that argument.
So if that's the case, I would imagine that this will probably get shut out of awards unless Johnny Greenwood wins for Best Score.
Yeah, which, I mean, again, the 6 nominations were such a surprise that you just happy.
It's a win in and of itself.
Exactly, because the consensus was that not enough people had seen it. It just wasn't enough buzz. All the other award shows leading up to the Academy Award nominations reflected as such. So the fact that, especially like Leslie Manville, I mean, no one thought that was coming, let alone all the other ones. So DDL is probably the only nom that was on everyone's back. Like I said, Gold Derby, no one predicted the Best Picture nomination, and those are the expert award predictor people. So great. Yeah, they're just the recognition is great. You know, it's funny. You mentioned Paul Thomas Anderson as one of the greats of his generation. He's never won Best Director, nor has a movie he's made won Best Picture, which is also true for Christopher Nolan. And after this Academy Awards, it'll still be true for both of them. So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting how that goes, you know?
Yeah, you know, I think it's one of those things similar to our discussion about the Grammys, where sometimes people that put out the best work consistently don't always get honored for it, these sort of things, but their impact culturally is way bigger than the people who like Guillermo del Toro at this point. I have a theory about Daniel Day-Lewis. So about like 3 years ago, when this movie was starting to like come about, people were saying like, oh, you know, Daniel Day-Lewis probably gonna be his last movie. He wants to just like make clothes in London now. And I was like, what? Just make clothes in London? But he was obviously just preparing for this shit. What if he's actually saying he's retiring from being an actor because that's the next role he's going to play?
Oh,
Thoughts?
Wow.
Inception, Daniel Day-Lewis.
You got to write that piece, dog. I like that a lot. That's dope.
I mean, it'd probably be his favorite like method acting experience ever. Just getting to be lazy.
It's like Daniel Day-Lewis acting in Birdman.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be down for that.
No, I mean, I hope this isn't his last performance. My money would be that it's not.
He's what, 60?
But if
he's
it
not
is,
that old.
No, he's not that old, and he's so selective. I can see him in, I don't know, a couple of years wanting to come back and do a role with a director he feels is important or has a good piece.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But overall, if this is it, Daniel Day-Lewis, great career and a great last movie to go out on.
Mm-hmm.
We recommend seeing Phantom Thread when you can, and seeing all the Oscar movies, which we will be talking about. I, Tanya, will be coming up in a week or so. The Post will also get to any others that we haven't talked about that we should.
We'll probably talk about the 3 Billboards backlash at some point.
Yeah, I should probably get to that. I just have really no interest. It's interesting.
I mean, I think it's worth watching. I think the whole backlash, not to spoil the convo, but the backlash isn't that the movie is bad or the movie is trash. It's just that it does some questionable things and just doesn't deserve as much of the high praise that it's going to get. That's basically what the argument is. But yeah, it's worth watching. I mean, you're going to watch it now knowing all of this, but yeah, I think it's worth watching to kind of understand how that goes, because the alternative is probably The Shape of Water, which is a movie that, as we've said, is for a movie about fish sex, it somehow wasn't that weird. So, it's
a great way to sum it up. We have a lot of things to talk about coming up. February is interesting because we have basically Oscar movies. We have some TV. We're going to be talking Waco and the end of the fucking world. Maybe touching on Versace. We have Justin Timberlake next week for music, followed by MGMT, Franz Ferdinand, Car Seat Headrest. And then we also have Black Panther coming out end of the month. And then March comes around and Atlanta starts up. So
March has a lot of movies too. I think there's like 5 movies I want to see in March.
It's going to kick into high gear pretty quickly here. So if you want to hear our takes on all of it, subscribe on YouTube, download on iTunes, and subscribe there as well. And also go to SoundCloud and leave us some comments, give us reviews, let us know what you think. You can find Dave at Martin Swagger, me at Sheeny World Peace, the pod at Nowstalgia Pod. Dave, Super Bowl predictions, dog. What do you got?
So Justin Timberlake is at the halftime show. Album out Friday, like you said. We'll talk about that next week.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you, how many of these new songs do you think he will play?
2.
There's 3 singles out right now. The rest of the album will be out by the time the show starts, but album won't be that new, of course. Yeah, 2. I was actually thinking maybe just 1. I was like, do you think he opens it up with like Supplies or Filthy?
Well, here's the thing. So Chris Stapleton is performing with him, confirmed.
Oh,
so
it is confirmed? Okay, well, there
confirmed.
It is.
So yeah, with that, I think we're going to get both Supplies and Filthy, but I think it'll be like
a medley
each.
Yeah.
Something like that. I also think we're going to get, obviously, the one from last year, which is Can't Stop the Feeling, will probably be the closeout.
God damn
unfortunately. Do you think a member of NSYNC will perform with him on stage?
That's a good question. Is it more likely than Janet Jackson?
That's the thing.
Panorama's own Janet Jackson?
I was going to say, with her being announced, now I'm like, Janet Jackson comeback starting this year.
honestly, I wouldn't care what else happened if he brought Janet Jackson back because
He
his
basically,
career was not affected by that the way hers was. That would be
exactly.
awesome. You know, I would really like to see that. But yeah, the NSYNC thing is interesting because you remember when Beyonce's last time she had Michelle Williams and Kelly Rowland show up for some Destiny's Child action. So that would be cool. But like, how many of those dudes are still in shape? None of them sing anymore.
Joey Fatone, dog, get him out there.
That'd be pretty cool though. That'd be pretty cool.
Pink. So I believe the line is set on 2 minutes and 5 seconds, something like that, for her national anthem performance.
Oh, of course.
What do you think? Over under?
I forget what's like the benchmark. Like what is like a because didn't it blow by the line last year by like 20 seconds or something?
Who was it? Adele last year?
I forget.
Yeah, whoever remembers this stuff. But yeah, it was something out of the past 6 years, 5 times gone over, but it was like under every year before that.
I'm gonna take over because Pink has good pipes.
She does have good pipes. Also,
like most people that do this, but you know, I'm still taking the over.
She showed up to the Grammys in just a t-shirt, flip-flops, and jeans, which when you think about it, sometimes just going normal to these events can be the most like outlandish thing you can do.
Did you see Little Uzi Vert's outfit?
Yeah, it was something. It was something.
He made a song called "All My Chains" back in the day, but I don't think it was about chains on his jeans.
No. All right, prediction for the big game. What do you got?
30 zip Eagles.
Wow, I have Patriots 93-5. So one way or the other. No, I think it'll be typical Patriots Super Bowl, very close and go one way or the other. So definitely tune in. We will not be talking Super Bowl next week unless Patriots win. And we will be talking Justin Timberlake, End of the Fucking World, and probably I, Tonya or The Post. So tune in, leave us a rating review, give us some love on iTunes. Peace out.
Peace.